host, Jonathan Herbst, again, founder and CEO of Scale Up Growth Partners. Welcome to our Stories of Scaling Up series, where I speak to owners, managing directors, founders, and business leaders of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for the future. So today I'm speaking to Dane Meah. I hope I've got the surname pronunciation right, Dan. And Dan is CEO and co-founder of MyCISO. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's MyCISO.
MyCISO. So welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. So listen, just tell me a little bit about MyCISO, what you do, what you do in the company and what the company does, and how long have you been doing it, please?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, I'm the co-founder and CEO of MyCISO. It's a cybersecurity SaaS business. We've been the business idea was in the making for many years, and like a lot of business stories, there's a lot of failures on the way on the journey. And we launched in June this year, so we're into about our third or fourth month. But the idea and the business really was born from another larger cybersecurity business that I'm the co-founder of, and I stepped back from that about 18 months ago to dedicate 100% of my energy in MyCISO.
And so what does MyCISO do?
Yeah, so MyCISO enables an IT leader or their service provider to assess, improve, and manage their security uplift. So security being cybersecurity, everything from your firewalls, your policies, procedures, right the way through to awareness and training for staff. So it's all about mitigating and preventing major cyber incidents from occurring, which is obviously a fairly hot topic at the moment for a lot of businesses.
Sure. And tell me in a thumbnail, how do you do that?
Yeah, so the app has really sassified the journey that a consultant would normally take a business on. So anyone that's familiar with cybersecurity would know that terms like ISO 27001 or the NIST cybersecurity framework, PCI compliance and so forth. Traditionally, this would require weeks of consulting time to assess and then develop an improvement roadmap for that organization. And after years doing that within the other business, InfoTrust, I realized that approach, which would typically cost tens, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 just to get started, was inaccessible for a lot of businesses. And the driving forces overlapped on top of that were cyber insurers were demanding a high level of security for businesses to provide insurance. We're having greater expectations from the supply chain. So if you're a supplier into the financial sector or larger enterprises, they're going to start asking questions about how do you manage your cyber maturity and what framework do you align to. And for a lot of businesses, that just wasn't palatable to go and spend $30,000, $40,000 on consultants just to get started. So we looked at the process of the consultant and reverse engineered that and built a workflow that an organization or their service provider can follow through in order to first assess their security and their risk, and then build an improvement roadmap. And this is just the beginning of the app. We have a kind of a very comprehensive roadmap for what we're planning to develop, including a lot of discrete products directly in the app, like awareness training. So it's the second component that we've launched with, but other things like policy templates and a policy management platform, things like a vendor risk management platform. So again, these may not mean a lot to some of your audience, but they're going to.
I think it probably does.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to ask you who your core customer is, but my core customer is a CEO, founder, managing director of a private company, 10 to 250 staff.
Okay.
And I'm a CEO of that sort of company, as well. So yeah. I have a feeling I'm going to ask you now, how do you describe your core, your best customer? I've got a feeling I might be in your sweet spot.
Yeah. Well, I'll just Yeah. Okay.
So tell me, who is your core customer, your best customer?
Yeah. So in the phases of developing the app, I described it loosely as big enough to care, not so big to have a full CISO function. And I should explain where the name MyCISO comes from as well.
Yeah, please.
CISO is the acronym for Chief Information Security Officer.
Oh, okay.
So the target market is the business that, whether they have a CISO role or not, are looking for a simpler way to manage a uplift aligned to a robust framework. Now, in terms of the target market, that can mean 10 or 20 staff if they've got a high need for security. Like, for example, we have a client with 20 employees, but they supply the defense industry.
Yep.
So it's really important. We have another organization that's quite small that supports the insurance industry, and they're asking the tough questions. But outside, and then it's really upwards from there. So we're at the larger end, we have some ASX 100 listed companies who have a CISO, but the traditional way to assess your security posture with consultants or internally involves spreadsheets and a lot of time turning that raw data into meaningful reports. And because we've automated a lot of that, it's attractive at that end of town as well.
Okay. Interesting. So my next question is, we've been through the pandemic, and what actions did you take that will remain part of your business? And I mean, really, you're reasonably, you've been doing the planning, but only just launched. I mean, how has the pandemic affected the way you're doing business going forward?
Yeah, so obviously I can talk with two contexts because I've had the other business as well. Look, on the most part, it's changed the way that we work. We work remotely a lot more often, and because this is my second business, I've taken the view that MyCISO will be a 100% remote workforce. Is number one. Now we do have an office in the CBD in Sydney, but there's not an expectation that this team will come in on any frequency other than when we need to get together and meet in person. But that tends to be on a once a month basis at the moment. The second piece is, and this is more in the other business, one of the challenges, and it's positive and a negative. And I don't think we can sort of stand back and say that all the changes in the way they work have been positive. And one of the negative aspects of that is, the younger generation. I think we've really traditionally would come into the workforce not only to do their jobs, but learn from those around them. So, one of the changes that we were forced to make, midway through the pandemic was look at the types of people we bring into the business. So now I've got really focused on bringing in people with experience and, that are going to require less coaching or mentoring, which, for me was a complete U-turn on the previous model, which was, bringing young talent and nurture them through. But, it's proven to be quite successful, though, you don't have to, it's very difficult to find experience as well. So it's, I think I've been in a fortunate situation where I've been able to find that talent, but I think we're the exact solution to the problem of how do you coach and mentor younger talent in a remote working environment. I don't think we've fully solved that one yet.
Yeah, it's an issue that many of my clients are dealing with, and they're doing it in different ways. One of them is in the office for 2 days a week, example, and remote for 3 days a week to get that collaboration in place. I certainly find that we put in place regular meeting rhythms and coaching rhythms for members of the team, and that's helpful. But it's a challenge for everybody because I everything I'm seeing, I can't see it's going back to the way business was in the past.
No, that's right.
So tell me, what does the future look like for your business, and what challenges do you see ahead of you?
Well, we're in an increasingly digital era, and more and more businesses are conducting their business online, but also your personal life. Yeah. So with that change in the way that we work and the way that we, connect with our friends and family, all online, do business, do our shopping, etc., online, there's an increased risk of cyber incidents and an increased risk of falling victim to an attack, both personally and as a business. And that presents a lot of challenges. Just today I was talking to an organisation that's, been around for a long time, hundreds of staff, but they don't have anybody that understands security really well. They have the traditional IT manager and that group have been busy enough managing transformation of their business to online over the past couple of years. So, security has whilst considered, hasn't been at the forefront of those decisions. And that's the way it should be. Your business has to move forward first, and then the security function needs to support that. But at the same time, that does present an opportunity for businesses like MyCISO that drive efficiency into assessing and managing the security uplift for businesses. And that's kind of where I'm obviously, focusing my time is how do I, the focus was relentlessly on the personas of our product. And the full story behind MyCISO and the failure that we had was in 2017, after about 3 years of, pondering the idea, we found someone that was going to lead that product and build it. At the same time, build a consulting practice in the original InfoTrust business. And 3 years later, progress was slow, too many competing priorities. We launched a product which was, I'm going to say it was whilst functionally correct, was too complicated. And I said, look, you need to explain to me how we are supposed to use this and what. And about 2 hours later, we've got a whiteboard with arrows going everywhere, and we've got risks and incidents and controls mitigate risks. And my head was, and I realized at that moment that our target market were never going to use this product. And that was in 2020. So we went back to the drawing board and started the whole process of development again, which was quite painful after 3.5 years of development. And really what we kept at the forefront of our thinking were the buyer personas of our product, which were, we even gave them names, Terry, the technical manager. He's not a security guy, right? He knows how to run networks and, end user compute, but right the way through to, Charles, the CIO, that wants to keep tabs on his security program. So I think the learning was keep the buyer personas at front of mind, not necessarily what you think, which is where we got caught.
It's a really, really good point. There was a client I had a bit to do with some time ago called JBro, and JBro is a building services, provides products for the construction industry. They family-owned business. They sold, the numbers may not be exactly right, but they sold 80% of the company for $120 million to Champ Private Equity, a fabulous exit, and then they made a final exit for a lot more later on. But they had, and if you go on their website, you can see a picture of life-size cardboard cutout of their core customer, who was in all around the business, in the boardroom, in accounts, like you name it. This life-size trading was everywhere, and it was all about focusing on providing for the core customer. Yeah. Another client of mine has a nurse, a mannequin dressed up as a nurse, because they focused on their focus on hospitals. So it's a really good, it's a fabulous piece of learning. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
So tell me, what's your biggest learning been since you've been a business owner, do you think?
Oh, that's a big one. What's my biggest learning, did you say?
Yeah, as a business owner.
Look, I think it's create demand first and build the profit product second. I think, having come from a sales background, right back to 2014 when we founded InfoTrust, there was always, the kind of step one was to create the demand and then find the product. Now, obviously, there can't be too much of a lag there behind, you need an idea, but there's been examples in our business where we've built the product and then taken it to market and it didn't resonate. And sometimes the lead-in for that effort can be huge. So creating the demand. Now, on a more practical level, where we've this has worked really well for our businesses. We've, in some cases, partnered with other organisations that have a service or product that we want to build, and that's allowed us to go and speak to our customers, iron out some of the wrinkles in our go-to-market and our support of that before taking the investment, maybe hire someone or make some capital investments into building out a product solution. So that's probably one of the main learnings, and something we've done reasonably well as a business over the years.
Right, so collaboration,
but like I said, test the market quickly and often is probably the lesson there. Yeah.
Right. So tell me, when you think of the word successful, who pops to mind, and can you tell me why?
Yeah. So the first person that sprung to mind when you said that was my mother, and it's not in a traditional way. She wasn't the CEO of a large business or somebody that has inspired me on a business context. But it comes back to core values, and so the reason being is my mum raised 3 boys as a single parent, but at the start of that, she also took herself back to college and learned a new skill, and ultimately became very successful in her career and making a difference to people's lives. So I was just incredibly inspired by work ethic. And how through challenging times, she always found a way to come out on top, and that's instilled in me and my brothers as well a lot of resiliency and determination. And I think those are 2 really important traits when it comes to leading a business and creating something from scratch.
You make sure you show your mother this recording.
Sure will.
No, definitely you need to show it to her. Are you a reader? Are there any books, podcasts, biographies that you'd recommend?
Yeah, definitely. And look, I wouldn't call myself a bookworm. But I've always been a person that needs to put things into action as soon as I find something good. But there were some books that have changed my life.
Yep.
Again, without going into my full life story, when I was quite young, I had quite a serious injury, which started from a football accident, broken leg, which got worse and worse. And it meant that I couldn't go to university due to the injury, and I was feeling quite low at that time in my life. But the book that was given to me was Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. And it completely changed my mindset about, how you should look at negative things that happen to you and how you can use them to empower you to do good. And it was at that time when I started my first business, and, my previous aspirations to be a sports journalist quickly changed to, business and, the impact that I could make there. So that was the first book, and that's probably the most impactful book that I've ever read. And, to this day, it still affects me. Another book, which is more on a functional basis, it's helped me on my career. And I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs, maybe have come from the engineering side or that are looking to improve their sales function. The book that really made a big impact to my sales career was Spin Selling by by Neil Rackham. Sorry, moment of. But yes, and Spin Selling is a famous. It's probably old school now, but it really boils down to understanding the customer problem and the implication of that problem, and really helping them on the journey to understand that. And as opposed to going straight into pitch mode, which some people can be tempted to do. And then the last and kind of final book, which may kind of cross into the realm of your domain, is sort of business management. It's a book by Gino Wickman, which I mentioned earlier, which is Traction, and the associated books, which kind of sit in a similar realm of how to run and set up a business effectively. And again, my story there was one of two young entrepreneurs back in 2014, sitting in a broom cupboard on a single desk on the other side of it from one another, both capable, but without the structure and organisation to run a business. And we thought, we need to speak to someone that can help us with this, and someone gave us the book, and really that laid out for us a pathway to put the structure, the cadence, the scorecards, and the systems and processes into that business to allow it to scale. So that again, books that have made a big impact, those are the three that kind of stand out for me.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So Gino, he's a fabulous businessman. So Gino Wickman was founder of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. He and I when we started coaching, he and I both started out as certified coming up coaches. And Gino then went out and interesting story. I'm a coach. An advisor, but I have a coach as well. My coach is a guy called Dan Sullivan out of the US.
Oh yeah, Dan Sullivan. I know Dan Sullivan. I've listened to some of his podcasts and
So Gino had Dan was his coach as well. And but Traction is and it's one of the foundation books, and the process and what he coaches is one of the foundations of what I. But for CEOs out there, founders, one of his other books called Rocket Fuel is, if you haven't read that, you should. It talks about essentially the concept of understanding what your unique ability is, and more importantly, understanding what your unique ability isn't. So, what are you really good at doing? What do you love doing? So, in my business, I love doing what I'm doing now. I love coaching. And I'm very good at it. I'm very good at putting tools and frameworks together and linking clients' needs up with all of that. But I'm really crap at all of the admin. So I have this team of people around me, a content manager, a practice manager, a sales coordinator, bookkeeper, like all of whom have different unique abilities to me. And my practice manager, the concept there is eventually will be the COO of my business, because that's not my unique ability, and that's what Rocket Fuel's about. So that's well worth looking at. If I can make one other point, Tony Robbins, a lot of people who've seen Tony Robbins just see this, huge man with this extraordinary energy and getting people to walk over hot coals and things, and it's not what he is. No. And he's released a book just about 3 months ago called Life Force, which I would recommend all of you to go and buy. Life Force was written by another one of my mentors, Dr. Peter Diamandis, and it's looking at how technology is changing health and medicine, and bringing out the latest. The latest in the breakthroughs in health and medicine, and it's a fabulous book. You want to increase your longevity, you need to read this book. But the other part about it is all of the money from the book has been donated to his charity, which feeds homeless people in America. And so far, I think He's fed 20 million people.
Wow.
Serious life purpose and making a difference. So anyway, there's one back for your life force as well worth reading.
Yeah, I wrote and noted that down. Thanks.
Okay, so any last piece of advice for a CEO or an aspiring CEO out there?
Yeah, look, I think be willing to try new ideas, but also be prepared to fail fast. I think as entrepreneurs and as visionaries, I think the term you were referring to earlier.
Yeah.
You can be an idea machine. So it's important not to get too locked on those ideas. I think coming up with strong ideas is where you have to start, but then testing them out. Like I said, create the demand. Go and have a few conversations with customers. Create a prototype or MVP, but be prepared to fail as well. And I think going back to my personal experience, failing after 3.5 years of the development of the product. Now, I probably wasn't close enough to it because of other priorities as well. But as soon as I realized we were onto a loser, I pulled the plug, and we didn't call it a failure. It was a lot of lessons, and we carried those lessons forward, which meant that we built what I believe is a rock star product and platform in 9 months. We tripled our development resources and doubled down, but be prepared to try anything, but fail fast. And some of your best ideas will turn into nothing. But then, some of your left field ideas will turn out to be gems. So you just, don't be too, don't prejudice your thinking too much. Yeah,
great advice. I was saying to someone earlier, one of my favourite Steve Jobs quotes is that, or was that he was as proud of what Apple didn't do as what Apple did do. In other words, he was proud that they were prepared to say no.
Exactly, and that's true of the feature set as well. I've noticed a lot of tools on the market. It's feature, but thankfully the product owner that I brought in had years of experience in large end of town financial sector where we have millions of users through the app. It's all about keeping it simple, and that's something we've focused on with our app for security.
And make it easy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the core. One of the core things I coach on strategy: make it easy for your customer to do business with you, make it easy for your supplier, and make it easy for your staff. You get that right, you're on success.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dane, thank you.
No problem.
I really appreciate it. For all of you who aren't aware, Dane is dealing with a major cold, so you did really well.
Thank you. I was surprisingly better than I was on the last call, so thank you.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.